In today's show, we round up the latest mock drafts for the Trailblazers. Plus, the team is holding pre-draft workouts starting this week. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond. You are listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making this show your first listen. Coming at you each and every weekday, Monday through Friday, so make it a part of your daily routine. Make it your first listen. Tell your friends to do the same. It's Locked On Blazers, your team every day. In today's show, we are rounding up the latest mock drafts. Some of my favorite internet prognosticators have released some updated mocks on who the Blazers might take in the lottery. We'll focus on lottery picks in today's show. Next week, we'll get back to some second round love, but today we're focusing on a couple lottery picks, including what's going on with ESPN's mock. There's more to it than meets the eye, or there's nothing to it that meets the eye. I think those are the two obvious questions. And then the Blazers are going to start pre-draft workouts today. As you were listening to this is Thursday, May 23rd show. And on today, the Blazers will kick off their in-person at the practice facility pre-draft workouts. I want to talk about what that means, how to pay attention to them, how I'm going to pay attention to them, and whether they're meaningful in any way for us as tea leaf readers. So before we get out the tea leaves, let's talk about mock drafts. Specifically, let's start with ESPN. ESPN, they released a mock draft on May 22nd. So on Wednesday morning, it was published around 3:30 a.m. Pacific time, 6:28 Eastern time. And the Blazers are in these mocks, where the Blazers have 7 and 14 in the draft. The Blazers at 7 are taking Nikola, and at 14 are taking Zach Edey. If you are a obsessive compiler of these things, you'll know that this is a duo that a couple rounds ago of mocks, pre-lottery mocks, the ESPN had Nikola and Zach Edey going to the Blazers. And now the Blazers fall back to 7 and 14, kind of they're in these established positions. And ESPN, again, in their prognostications, has the Blazers taking Nikola and Zach Edey. What is going on here? I don't think Edey is that confusing. Maybe not my Huckleberry, but that's like a fairly normal pick in that range, I think. It's we'll talk about him in a moment. But the Topic one is the big one. What's going on here? What does it mean? To quote a children's book that I often read in my home. Nikola is a 6'6", 6'7", 19-year-old point guard who's been playing in the Adriatic League. I haven't seen him play much, like even in the highlights, because he got injured in January, missed a chunk of time, and then he came back in the playoffs and got injured again. It's re-injured of the same knee. It's reportedly not that bad of an injury, and he'll be fine, and he'll probably get to do some sort of pre-draft workout stuff for NBA teams as he ramps up here over the next month ahead of the draft at the end of June. But he's a point guard who can't shoot. And he's big, right? So maybe you could call him an off-ball wing. But even if he's an off-ball wing, his probably role in the NBA is primary playmaker, right? Like he's an on-ball guy whose value is going to come because he can operate pick and rolls, get to the rim and use his size and his angles to size and like understanding of angles to attack, and make plays. But he's not really a shooter. So even if you just plug him into the Delano Banton role and you say that works fine, well, Banton only got minutes and it only was fine because they were so light on available guards. No Malcolm Brogdon, no Shaedon Sharpe, and for the most part, no Anthony Simons to close the year. So it's like there were minutes for him. The Blazers are somewhat log-jammed at guard right now, although I think there is a fairly safe bet that they will do something to clean up that logjam. If nothing else, probably trade Malcolm Brogdon. But the Topic thing is odd because a non-shooter guy who needs the ball in his hands is a weird fit next to Scoot Henderson, and more off-ball-y stuff for Shaedon Sharpe seems to maybe not maximize what he is going to do, although I wouldn't say that is certainly much less of a concern. It's the two guys who need to dribble who can't shoot playing next to each other, taken in back-to-back drafts. If you take your point guard of the future in 2023, taking your point guard of the future also in 2024 is a weird move unless, and I've talked about this a bunch before, is like, unless the Blazers have Topic so high up in their tiers and they say he is the second best player in the draft, or we even have him as the best player in the draft and he falls to us at 7, we have to do this. Like we cannot let this level of talent slip. And I don't know that they have that. I'm just offering a scenario in which I think it would make sense. And that would be a defensible scenario where the team just has him so high. You better get it right if you have him that high, but it's like, but that would be the defensible scenario. And since he's big enough, you could see a world where he does share the court with Scoot and with Shaedon Sharpe, and it wouldn't be that big of a problem because he's bigger. But it's not a clean fit. It's not a clean fit. But it's an interesting one. I think the other little guards, like the Kentucky guards, don't make sense. Topic is like right on the line where he's big enough that it would make sense, but it's a weird selection. Edey is a little different. Like, he's the Blazers. Like, they can totally draft a big man. They can draft a center at 14, and it'll be totally fine. They could use some depth at that spot. Anyways, obviously they have Rob Williams under contract, but his health is uncertain, and Duop Reith. But I don't think Reith is good enough that you would say like you can't take Zach Edey at 14 because you have Duop Reith. That would be kind of irresponsible in terms of team building. If you're a longtime listener, everyday listener, shout out to my everydayers, you know that I'm not a big Zach Edey guy because I think centers in the league, centers in the modern NBA, they're unless they're elite offensive players, the thing that you want to get value from them is on defense. That's like the thing that you want to have the most value. You want them to be really good defensive players, or at least like have the upside to be really good defensive players. And I'm not sure Edey can guard in the NBA. I'm worried about that lateral quickness. I mentioned that I think his offense is somewhat limited. I think he just turns over his left shoulder and makes right-handed hooks, but he's also like gigantic and he's in incredible shape, and maybe like having a go-to move and being bigger than everyone you play, it won't matter, right? Like I think teams will sit on that left shoulder and say, turn over the right shoulder, buddy. Let's see what you can do. I watched NC State do it to him in the NCAA Final Four, and Donovan Clingan also got to that eventually after getting rocked in the first 8 minutes of the national championship game. I think NBA teams will be able to do it, but like he's productive enough and giant enough and interesting enough that like 14, I'm not gonna cry about it. It wouldn't be what I would do, but who am I? I am some dude in his basement. But this is a little bit odd. And if this had been any other draft service, any other prognosticators, I'd probably say, hey, this is what they think. They're smart. They have their reasons. With ESPN, it's more than that. Mike Schmitz, the Blazers' assistant GM, worked with Jonathan Givony at Draft Express for like a decade. They know each other. They're friends. They're longtime friends. When ESPN says what the Blazers might do, it is worth looking at. To wit, lucky for you, I have access to the internet, and I was able to go back and look at the past mock drafts of last season to kind of figure out, because I knew ESPN had it right. Like, it had it right, but when did they get it right? On May 16th, May 16th, 2023, about a month before the draft, 6 weeks before the draft, the ESPN had the Blazers taking Scoot Henderson, 3rd overall, and James Nagy at 23. At 24, they had Chris Murray heading to the Kings. That was on May 16th, 2023. That was a very early post-lottery mock that came out from ESPN. Then on June 6th, a couple weeks later, just shy of 3 weeks later, the ESPN had the Blazers taking Scoot Henderson and Chris Murray. June 6th, we are now 24 days before the draft. A week before the draft, ESPN has the Blazers taking Scoot Henderson and Chris Murray. In that final mock released on June 22nd, I believe they released one day of the draft, but on that mock released a week before the draft, ESPN had 9 of the first top 10 picks correct, including both Blazers picks at 3 and 23. They might be wrong. This might not be right. This might be the James Nagy situation, right? Nikola Topic could be a James Nagy situation where it's like, hey, this is some player that they've heard whispers in the range and they think it's there. And when you get from over the next month, from May 23rd to June 27th, when the NBA draft is, like the particularly the back half of the lottery will shift around and the Blazers won't be there, or maybe the middle of that lottery with Topic, and particularly in this draft where there doesn't seem to be a lot of consensus. And because ESPN not only got the Blazers picks right, but 9 out of the top 10 picks to begin the draft correct, maybe when they get a little more intel, the draft that particular mock will be a little bit more predictive, and so that maybe this is nothing. But if this was anyone else that had mocked Nikola Topic to the Blazers several times over and over again, I would say, okay, they just like him in this slot. When it's ESPN doing it, put a star next to it. I'm not saying this is a done deal. That would be so silly to think that. But like typically when I have these tinfoil hatty things, I don't share them with you all. I don't unpack them because I think I think it's a little bit stupid. But this one I'm going to unpack for you. Pay attention to this. Pay attention to this. This is not nothing. There's a chance that it doesn't play out this way, but it is not nothing when ESPN does this. How about some other mocks? Some other folks that maybe didn't work with the Blazers assistant GM for a decade have some mocks. Some of my favorite, most trusted minds from across the internet landscape. I want to share them with you in the second segment. Join me there, because the Blazers got some surprises coming your way in these mocks. Join me in the second segment, won't you? First, I want to tell you that today's show is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. If you are a small business and you are looking to hire, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tool to help you find the tools, that is, more than one tool. The tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. It gives you access to professionals you can't find anywhere else. LinkedIn does all that while making the process easy and intuitive. Hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours when they use LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make that process easier, too. They've even launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the posting to hiring process faster and easier for you. There's over 2.5 million small businesses that are already using LinkedIn for hiring. So join in on it and post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnba. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnba to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, let's keep it rolling with our mock draft roundup. We talked about ESPN and why I would keep a little star next to what they're doing, because they've got some predictive power in this thing, and they were telling you in June of last year, weeks before the draft, what the Blazers were going to do. So when this next one rolls out early June, when the next ESPN mock rolls out early June, we're going to put a star next to that one as well, because I think will have some meaningful, some predictive power. It might not be 100% correct. They certainly got things wrong when you look back at their final mocks, but last year, I know of the big services, ESPN was the most accurate, and they have nailed the Blazers. They had the Shaden Sharp pick too, so get on it. But they're not the only ones making mock drafts. Some of my friends are out there making mock drafts too, like Raphael Barlow, who writes the NBA Big Board newsletter. You should go subscribe to his Substack. That's NBA Big Board. He also hosts right here on this network, Locked on NBA Big Board. Shout out to my man Raphael. Hope you're doing well out there, brother. What's Raph got? He's got 2 picks for the Blazers, Ron Holland and Tijan Salon. I think this is a popular mock for Blazer fans. I would be intrigued by this. Holland, I waver on. I want to believe. I do. I want to believe, because I like the things that he does well. I enjoy. He plays really hard, and playing hard is a skill. Like being guys that you have to wind up and remind to play hard are very similar to guys that you have to remind to keep their elbow in on jump shots. Like some dudes know, okay, I'm gonna get my feet square, I'm gonna get my hips square, I'm gonna keep my elbow in, and this is gonna be a clean looking jumper. And some guys have to think about it when they're shooting it in order to get their form right. And some guys play hard because that's what they do when they step on the court. And other guys say, oh yeah, today I'm gonna bring it, I'm gonna be a dog. Holland plays hard. You like that. That is a skill. I think that is a skill. The more I watch basketball, the more I kind of consider the maturation of players from lower levels, or at least like early in their NBA careers to the end of their NBA careers. Playing hard is a skill. Guys who play hard always. It's a skill. Holland has that skill. He has some defensive upside. He has some playmaking upside. He has some slashing upside. He can't really shoot right now, but shooting is a skill you can improve at. It's not a skill everyone improves at. Certainly some players just aren't good shooters, and maybe Holland is that. And if he's like an off-ball wing who can't shoot, that's troubling in the NBA. But if he was a turnover heavy kind of non-shooter early in his G League career, and kind of he improved a little bit and then got hurt at the end of the year and didn't finish the season. But I like him. I don't love him. I don't think I love anyone at 7 right now. I don't think there's a player that like, oh yeah, he's my guy. I'll probably try to develop a stronger opinions. I might not ever develop like true infatuation, but maybe like narrow my preferences down. But Holland is on my short list of like, yeah, and for sure intriguing right there at 7. And Salon, like he's been sort of, for me, if you're a long-time listener to the program, the guy I would circle at 14. That it would be really intriguing. The problem is that there's a lot of reports that he is rising up draft boards and probably, or could go in the top 10, and including ESPN's latest mock where they have him going at 8. If he's it's like, would you take Salon at 7? I don't know enough to make a strong call. If the Blazers like him and they know that he's not going to be there at 14, that's the choice, is to go ahead, either trade back if you can, or go ahead. Salon's big. Like I think again, like his downside is that he's not an NBA player, right? Is that he's just like, he's farther enough away in sort of his overall skill set that he's just like can't play in the league, but he's just really big, like 6'9" with a big frame, has some shooting upside, and plays really hard. The Blazers got 2 guys that really play hard, that like kind of like keep the RPMs revving, run hot. I don't think you could be too upset about that. Obviously, there's like, players have downside. It's always a dart throw. The draft is hard to get right. So maybe Salon just like doesn't hit his upside. But his upside is like a really, really intriguing player. Gigantic frame, shooter, defender, multi-positional defender, guy who can attack the rim and shoot. Very interesting. That's a high-end outcome for him. I'm not sure he hits that, but to me, he's a pretty intriguing prospect. That's Rafael Barlow over at NBA Big Board. Friend of the program, Keandre over at Hoop Intellect on YouTube, has the Blazers taking Matas Buzelis of the G League Ignite at 7 and Tidjane Salon at 14. Salon's a popular pick. I've been on Salon at 14 for months, and it's because friends of the program and smart people think he could be in the range too. I think I like Buzelis as a prospect. Like I think he would be someone I wouldn't be disappointed. He might go higher. Like I've seen him mocked at 5 to the Pistons. Maybe some. I don't think I've seen him much higher than 5, but like he 5's 2 picks away from where the Blazers are. So he's going to be right in their range. I worry about his physicality a little bit. When I saw him in person, the physicality was too much for him. He was getting out-muscled in the G League. And if you're getting out-muscled in the G League, you're going to have problems with physicality in the NBA. But he's like 6'10" with some shot blocking upside. He was a good shooter in high school, could not shoot at all at the pro level. If he becomes a shooter, he's like 6'10" with some sort of like end-to-end ball handling skills, and some like plus side as an off-ball defender. That's a really intriguing power forward in the NBA. That's like a really intriguing guy who could play gigantic 3, play a little bit of 4, or if he's not physical enough to play 4, play a bunch of 3 with like some shot blocking upside. Like that's an intriguing player. Again, this is like, but if he doesn't hit his upside, if he can't shoot, and if the physicality, if he never gets there physically, he's just kind of like a wiry non-shooting small forward. That's not a really appealing player. So I think that is, for me, those are the two. Holland and Buzelis, I like them both, and I could easily talk myself into them at 7, and talk myself out of them at 7 for a variety of reasons, but neither of them are like obvious home runs for me. Over at Bleacher Report, our third and final mock draft of today's show, Jonathan Wasserman at Bleacher Report. Wass has been doing this forever. Feels like 15 years since the NBA Draft Net days. He's got 2 names that you don't typically see at the Blazers picks, and I think it's worth considering because they go against some of my prior held opinions. And I think it's always good at this time of year to challenge your opinions. Wasserman has the Blazers taking Dalton Knecht of Tennessee at 7 and Jared McCain of Duke at 14. This would be a weird draft. This would be a weird one. I don't think either of these guys have star upside in the league. I think Dalton Knecht has a fairly decent chance of being a good offensive player in the league. He's really athletic on offense. Like he's like getting to the rim. He doesn't, offense is downhill, north-south athleticism. Defense is east-west athleticism, it's lateral movement. So it's not the same. It's just not the same type of athleticism. For some guys it translates, some guys it doesn't. But Knecht is like a really good athlete who absolutely lit up the SEC, was just nuts as a productive college player and one of the best shooters in the draft class. The Blazers desperately need shooting. I don't think it's hard to talk yourself into Knecht being a good fit on the Blazers. 6'6" shooter. Like, could you plug him into a lineup? Yeah. Could you plug him into a lot of lineups on the Blazers? Yeah. And would he be helpful? Absolutely. Absolutely. So I don't think for me, it's just like, I don't see him because he's a little bit older, spent time in college before transferring to Tennessee. It's like, I don't really see his upside as beyond like a role player, but like, as I just explained with Holland and Buzelis, they have a lot of things to hit to get, their upside relies on some of the things they're bad at hitting. If Knecht just does what he's already good at, he's going to hit like sort of role player level. I just don't know that he has more beyond that in his game. But like in this draft, in a draft that's maybe heavy with guys that project as role players, projecting someone that has a slightly safer floor in Knecht maybe is more appealing to you. Wouldn't be what I would do, but I think it's easy to talk yourself into. McCain is interesting because he's smaller, right? I think he measured below 6'2" barefoot at the combine. But like, I think he's a pro. I just don't. For the Blazers, I wouldn't want. He's a 2 to me. Like at least from what I saw in college, he's not an on-ball guy. He's not a point guard. If he's an off-ball player, like if he's a 2 guard and he's more of like a 6'2" wing, to me that's not ideal for what the Blazers currently have with Scoot and Anfernee Simons and on the roster. I do think he'll be a long-time pro because I think he's a really good shooter and I think he's got good touch on driving closeouts and some in-between game there. He can shoot off movement. He can shoot off the catch. He can shoot off the dribble a little bit. Shooting translates typically in the league if he's able to get a shot off, and he had some really big games at Duke as a shooter. A couple games against Carolina that were really, really nice shooting games. Lost them both though. Sorry, but my apologies. But I bet he'll be a pro for a long time. Like I do. I think he has the skills to translate. But again, I don't see the upside and I don't love the fit. But again, like drafting 2 shooters in Knecht and McCain is exactly the skill set. If you listen to yesterday's show, it's like someone in a mailbag episode, I believe it was listener Jason, who asked like, what's the skill the Blazers should add? And I said the skill that they should add, like it's a boring one, but it's probably the obvious one, is shooting. And now I'm poo-pooing 2 shooters, so it's like, I understand why you would. These are probably the 2 best shooters you could draft in the lottery, and the Blazers get both of them. Would that help the team? It absolutely would. I would probably swing bigger knowing you might strike out, but if you wanted to hit on needs in this draft and know that they're probably not going to change your trajectory much for next year, and you might be back in the lottery at the top of it maybe again, you could do worse than those picks. Okay, in the final segment to close the show, I want to talk about NBA. I want to talk about pre-draft workouts. The Blazers are going to host their first pre-draft workouts today, as you're listening to this. So let's talk about what they mean. Join me in that third segment, and we'll talk about their predictive powers, because that's what today's show is all about: is predicting stuff. Join me in that third segment, won't ya? Before we get there, though, I want to tell you that today's show is brought to you by BetterHelp. Therapy can be incredibly valuable for whatever you are going through. So if that's an acute traumatic event, a major trauma in your life, talking to a neutral third party, a therapist, can be incredibly valuable. But if that is just getting through the day-to-day, therapy can be incredibly valuable. An analogy I like to use here on the show is it's like routine maintenance for your car. Why you take your car to the mechanic at 25,000, 50,000, 75,000, 100,000 miles. In my car's case, 150,000 miles. Whew. Why you do that is because you want things to run smoothly. It just makes things easier when things run smoothly, and that's how therapy can be. It can help you develop the tools to be the best version of yourself, and it can just allow you a chance to get things off your chest. So if you're thinking about starting therapy, therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. You just fill out a brief questionnaire, you get matched with a licensed therapist, and then you can switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Get it off your chest with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. Still a pass first point guard. I'm still Mike Richmond. You are still listening to the Locked On Blazers. Let's talk pre-draft workouts. Blazers are going to host the first of several pre-draft workouts. From what I understand, they're going to host a couple a week starting today, as you're listening to this, Thursday, May 23rd, up through draft week. They won't host them every week because things, I'll talk about that in a moment, because the nature of agent workouts has changed a little bit, but I expect them to host 5 to 7 of these bad boys, a couple a week over the next 5 weeks as we get to the NBA draft. Do these matter? Yes, I think they do. Here's the thing. For teams, they can't matter too much. You can't put too much stock into them because the reason that you do a pre-draft, like the reason that you build your books on players and you watch the film and you talk to their coaches and you talk to their, people in their circles and you try to get intel on folks, and so you have, the data from watching them play, the data from watching them play in person, the data from breaking down the film, the advanced numbers from all of those things, and sort of the personal stuff that you can glean from doing your research. You build the book, so that way when someone comes into the gym and they light up the standard shooting drill, I was told by someone that Brandon Miller destroyed his workout with the Blazers. Like didn't miss a shot. Like he was so good. Obviously, the Blazers didn't have a chance to draft him, but because he went second to the Hornets, but so you don't get enamored with Brandon Miller went pretty good, but for example, so you don't get enamored with someone who just burns down the nets at their draft workout. You build your book, so they can't matter too much to teams, but they matter to us, like to me and you, because for the most part, these have been relatively predictive in terms of who the Blazers would pick. Last year, they basically brought in 5 guys, Scoot Henderson and 4 other guys who were all in the number 3 range. And then pretty much everyone else who worked out was a second round pick. They had the 23rd pick in the draft in person, like in their building. I got a handy dandy spreadsheet. So I revisit this before the show, and I'll start my new spreadsheet for this year tomorrow, new tab in the same spreadsheet, to be honest with y'all. But they didn't really work out anyone in that sort of late first round range, mostly second rounders, right? It was mostly second rounders. And then 5 guys who were in play at 3. Brandon Miller, Scoot Henderson, the Thompson twins, and Cam Whitmore. That was pretty predictive, right? Here are the 5 dudes we're thinking about at 3. If one of them's off the board, here are the 4 dudes who we're considering at 3. It's a 3-player draft. Scoot's the most likely one. And here are if we don't take Scoot, here are the 3 dudes we're going to draft behind him. The Blazers gave it to you right there. They showed you what they were going to do with public workouts. The prior year to that, Shaedon Sharpe came into the building, and then Shaedon Sharpe, in a non-public interview, came back to the building. That was later revealed that he came back a second time. But again, under Joe Cronin, both picks they've made have come in person to the facility and publicly disclosed workouts. No, if you want to track this the way I do, here's the way you do. The Blazers, they do not share the names prior to the day of the event. They tell media members, hey, there's going to be a draft workout tomorrow. Here's the time you're going to show up. Then when folks show up at the PF, that's the practice facility. When they show up at the PF, they give you the names. The team will share the names on social media. You'll see reporters share the names on social media. Look up those names on Google. Look them up or Bing. I don't care what search engine you use. Look them up. Ask Jeeves. And then just say okay, this dude is in this. This is a name that's mostly in the second round. This is a name that's I don't even see on mock drafts. He's an undrafted guy. This is a name that's on Sam Vecini's deep big board. This is and this is a dude who's going to be on the board at 7. Just track it, because these are predictive. And even prior to this, Joe Cronin was a member of the Blazers front office prior to getting the job. And over the course of Neil Olshey's tenure, where Cronin worked for him, the Blazers, they had a stretch during Olshey's that was broken in 2017, where every single first round pick they made under Neil Olshey came into the building. they've been predictive. They've been valuable. They're not every time. Like, again, they didn't work out Chris Murray. Under the Blazers, under Joe Cronin, they didn't work out Jabari Walker. They didn't work out Chris Murray. They did work out Toumani Camara, who they ended up trading for heading into training camp, and they did work out Ryan Rupert, who they ended up drafting. Like, it's not everyone. It's not going to be perfect 100% of the time, but it is going to give you a sense of names that they are considering. You're not going to get 100%, but you're going to get 80% of it, no prob. And again, on the team side, these draft workouts are only a small part of it. Some of it is you're doing agents a favor. Hey, my guy wants to get in the gym. He wants to work out. Can you get him there? Sometimes agents won't bring you players, right? They don't say either that's a situation they don't like, or like, say the Blazers, at 14. This won't really happen at 14, but last year at 23. Say an agent doesn't want their player to slip past 12 or slip past 17. Well, they're not going to work out with anyone past 17, right? They're going to say, okay, our workouts are only in the 11 to 17 range. We're working out with these 6 teams and nobody else. If anybody else wants to see us, we're going to host a pro day. And that's what you'll see a lot. Not only with the Blazers attended Chris Murray's private pro day with, I believe, Priority Sports with his agency. I guess scour social media, see if you could find Mike Schmitz or Joe Cronin in the background of the video. But if players don't come in, doesn't mean the Blazers didn't see them in person. If they do come in, doesn't mean they're guaranteed to be drafted. But it has been pretty predictive over the last, 15 years, 12 years, as well as when did Neil Olshey get the job? Like June of 2012. What's that? Yeah, 12 years. It's been pretty useful, and under Joe Cronin, it's been a pretty useful tell, particularly with lottery picks. With the lottery picks, you're gonna have a sense of, I think, who's on their board. This draft is more open. It'll be more interesting. It'll be more curious. But I think this is I think you could learn things from the names. So do what I do. You could just do. I'll sometimes I have a little bit of minor insider information, or I've done this long enough to kind of know how it works and know how the league works, and I've been around the game for a decade. But here's what I'm gonna do tomorrow. Someone's gonna tweet out the names. I'm gonna save those names in a spreadsheet. Later that night, I'm gonna look up the names where they are on a couple different draft boards. I'm gonna put numbers next to them in my little spreadsheet, and then I'm gonna say okay, here's the range of here's the type of guys they worked out. I'll do that for all the draft workouts, and at the end of the draft workout season, we'll kind of have a little more data to work with. I think they're meaningful. Again, they can't be too meaningful on the team side. They are meaningful for us. The way they're meaningful on the team side is that you get guys in the building and you get to talk to them and you get to meet them. Talking with Joe Cronin, he values that. He values that face-to-face interaction a lot, because you can learn some stuff from the film and from asking around, but that talking to someone face to face, he has told me that he values that a great deal, because it's a way to get a sense of what you think a guy is going to be like, because it is really hard to project how someone is going to evolve as a human, and grow as a human from 18 to 24, and kind of getting them in the building and talking to them 19 to 24, whoever old they pick as 22 to 24, they take Zach Edey, 22 to 26 if they take Edey, how those players mature. I think that's incredibly, there's some value there. But the on-court stuff, it's take some photos and shoot some jumpers. You can't even play 5-on-5 and team workouts. It's 3-on-3. It's a lot of single shooting stuff. Some agents won't even let their players play 3-on-3. That's why the Blazers had 1-on-none workouts for Miller and Scoot and Cam Whitmore, because they weren't going to come in and work out against anyone. They were going to come in and work out against a chair, and they were going to beat that chair's butt and give that chair buckets all day long. So pay attention to who works out and how they work out, and that will give you some insight. Also, read the ESPN mocks closely, and pay attention to everyone else who does this, because even if ESPN gets it right on who goes where, they might not get it right on who's actually good. So use all your tools this time of year. Be a 5-tool fan. Then come back for tomorrow's show and check us out. Tomorrow's show, Andy Patton of Locked On College Basketball, Locked On Gonzaga, and many other places on the internet. My man's doing work covering the sport of basketball. Andy Patton's going to join the show. We're going to talk NBA draft. You're going to enjoy it. Come back. It's fun. It's what we do. It'll be a good conversation. 5 days a week, wherever you get podcasts. Tell your friends about the program. I appreciate you listening. I will talk to you soon.